We will begin session 18 of the Science of Creation. We've been working our way through evidence that points not to the evolutionary model but to the creation model, or at a minimum begins to cast doubts upon the reliability of what's purported through Darwinian evolution. If you'll remember back to the first semester, we talked about reliability and how reliable does something have to be before you can count on it to absolutely be reliable. And so we've looked at some of those things. Your handout today is different than what you've had in the past, and there's a reason for that. So we're going to walk through paleontology. The simplest definition of paleontology is the study of ancient life. The field seeks information about several aspects of past organisms, their identity and origin, their environment and evolution, and what they can tell us about the Earth's organic and inorganic past. It is the scientific study of life that existed prior to and sometimes including. It includes the study of fossils to classify organisms and study their interactions with each other and their environments. And it talks about where paleontology first had its beginnings and when it came into a context of being a science, 1800s, and by the 1900s, or by the 20th century, it really began to be pushed forward. Again, the reason that it's there is to try to help explain the past. I remind you that when a creationist and an evolutionist began to look at the data, we have the same data, but the conclusions and the process by determining what the resolution of that data is where the difference comes from. Now, again, if your context of beginnings is random, mindless, accident, survival of the fittest, then everything you do is going to be slanted toward trying to find the evidence to point to that. If you're a creationist, then your slant is that God did everything. Some of what he did is probably like science, like the evolutionary scientists, is right now beyond our understanding. But we accept the truth and the fact of God doing it. Evolutionists will say, we accept the fact of the evolutionary process doing it. And so what we're going to do today is walk through something different. The reason I want you to see what paleontology is capable of when it comes to the rewriting of their narrative as they find true scientific evidence that doesn't fit their established timeline or evolutionary processes. One of the things that you find in science is that there's a continual updating, a continual shifting, a continual moving, because as the evidence that's found in the scientific realm, in paleontology specifically, and others, continues to astound them, continues to befuddle them, continues to cause them to go back and say, wait, we thought this is the way it was, but now we're going to say, no, we were wrong, but now we found this, makes it right. We believe this is the direction again. A creationist doesn't have to do that. Creationists will simply say, this is what God said, and the evidence that we find fits into the context of what we know. Had a discussion this week that there are old Earth creationists and there's young Earth creationists. And while we may differ on the time frame and the interpretation of some things, we accept the fact that God did what God did. And so just know that when we study the scripture narrative, the timeline doesn't change based upon the newly discovered evidence found in some area of science. So what I want to do today is we're going to walk through this. I'm going to suggest you get a highlighter or you get a pencil or something that and have your notes in front of you. If you don't have your notes, you ought to stop this right now, pause it, go get your notes, and then come back, because what we're going to do is walk through each one of these pages. These are let me say this right. These are all either news clippings from the paper or excerpts from online articles concerning the discoveries that paleontology have discovered and how they affect the quote-unquote science basic knowledge and understanding of things. And so what I want you to know as we go through here is what they don't say. There are things they say, but there's things they don't say. And that's what I want us to focus on, because sometimes what is not said, or in the phraseology that's used, is used with a specific and desired outcome to what they want you to see and understand. And if we don't pay attention, we simply accept at face value what is said. So I'm going to stop a second. I'm going to give you a chance to go get your notes if you don't have them. And you pause this and then come back in just a second. I'll wait right here. Okay, I hope you have your notes and you're ready to go. What I want to do is just look at the first article. It's a newspaper article from some time back. And here's the headline. New evidence unearths links birds to dinosaurs. The evidence points to the fact that birds and dinosaurs are directly related through the evolutionary process. And we're not going to read all of this, but about the bottom of the second paragraph, and I've got to get this up here because I'm blind. What happened is, let's just open the line up, the very beginning. From the jaw of an ancient bird unearthed in a German slate quarry, and from fossil leg bones of baby dinosaurs found in Montana, two groups of scientists have turned up striking new evidence that birds are closely related to dinosaurs. One thing you don't see in there is that potentially compares them to each other, makes a factual statement based upon two sets of evidence, one from Germany, one from Montana. These show a direct link. So let's look at the second half of that second paragraph, because here's what I want you to read. Because let me just read the second paragraph, do the whole thing. For more than a century, paleontologists have noticed similarities between fossils of many dinosaurs and the skeletal structures of modern birds. So let me stop. Scientists have found similarities between dinosaurs and birds. Therefore, they must be related. If we understand creation correctly, creation says God created everything in its kind. Similarity does not equate connectivity. Let me say that again. Similarity does not equate with connectivity. For example, a watermelon and a cloud are made up of about 90-something% of the same elements. A watermelon and a cloud are made up of the same elements, about 90-something%. There's a similarity there. The truth is, they're not connected in any way, shape, or form. But many times, evolutionary science wants us to see how, because that's the only way we can exist is because of the similarities, there has to be connectivity. But read the second part of that paragraph, and this is what I highlighted in my notes. Many scientists believe birds evolved directly from dinosaurs. Okay? I don't have a problem with that statement. Okay, so now look at the next sentence. This is what I highlighted in you. Some ornithologists argue that these similarities are coincidental and the debate remains far from settled. Now wait, what's the headline say? New evidence unearths links birds to dinosaurs. Carte blanche statement. And yet, many of those people who are involved say, wait, it's just a coincidence and this is not a settled issue. But the headline says it is. So when I pick up the newspaper, I read this article, I'm being told that these prove evidence and sets a link between, and yet even the scientists that are involved have begun to say, no, not necessarily. And so it walks on through about what those look like and how the teeth and the jaws are somehow similar, and therefore they must be related to prove the fact that the statement is true. But get over on the right-hand side of the picture. The top of the column says August 1992, but the scientists studying it have only now concluded their study and have released their findings. So go on down toward the middle. It talks about another piece of evidence linking dinosaurs and birds come from investigators at the University of Wisconsin and the Museum of the Rockies at Bozeman, Montana, who disclosed the results of their study of leg bones from young duck-billed dinosaurs called Malosaurus. say that some paleontologists say that members of the species cared for their young for years after hatching. Dinosaurs caring for their young. They say it happened. Here's the question that we need to always ask. Where's the proof? What's the evidence? Leg bones? I'm not sure how you can make the jump from one to the other, because according to the evolutionary model, the assumptions that are made, many paleontologists say this nurturing behavior of Mosasaurus and certain other dinosaur species sets them apart from modern reptiles, in which such behavior is supposedly rare. And you understand, according to the evolutionary model, our modern reptiles, our crocodiles, our turtles, our alligators, all those kinds of things do not care for their young. They lay their eggs, they go off and leave them. Here we have evidence of a dinosaur who cares for their young, and only birds can do that. So that links them together to prove the headline, new evidence unearthed links birds to dinosaur. One more thing with this one, and we'll jump on to the next one. Pardon me. The last two paragraphs on that article says this: what we've done is identify another shared characteristics of bird and dinosaurs. But wait, that's not what you said. You didn't say that there were shared characteristics. You said that they link them, that they're connected. Simply because a certain kind of dinosaur cared for their young, so do lots of other mammals care for their young. Marsupials care for their young. Seahorses care for their young. All of those things does not mean that your seahorse and the possum in your backyard are cousins. It simply cannot hold up. Then it says this. Here's the difficulty. The new Archaeopteryx fossil is only the 7th Archaeopteryx ever found. So now we have millions of dinosaur remains, and we only have 7 of these skeletons. Now stay with me, because when I turn the pages, it becomes very important. We have 7 skeletal remains of this dinosaur, who is considered to be a direct link between dinosaurs and birds, because they supposedly could fly, they had feathers. You've seen the pictures of those, and so that's part of the linkage between the Archaeopteryx and the mammal, the birds that we have today, and the dinosaurs that were back in those days. All 7 were discovered in slate quarries, and when they are so rare and precious to scientists that a single Archaeopteryx fossil has been valued at $5 million. So, guys, when you get through with this, if you want to make $5 million, go out and discover a fossil of this dinosaur, okay? Now, the evidence to prove that birds and dinosaurs are linked is suggested by some. It's the highly suggested evidence of similarity equates to linkage, okay? So turn and look at the next page. This is an article that came out sometime later after the bird dinosaur. That's the picture. By the way, nobody ever saw one of these. This is an artist's conception. Nobody has ever seen one of these creatures. What we have is, what did you hear? Skeletal fossils. Skeletal fossils. Several years ago at one of the major universities, in a paleontology class, groups of students were given a set of skeletons and said, tell us what this creature looked like. So these teams began to go to work, began to put the skeleton together. Now, it wasn't a full skeleton, it was just bones. Assembled it, and then ultimately developed a context and drew a picture, had an artist rendition of what they thought that creature looked like based upon the bones that they had. It was quite interesting. None of them came out with the same rendition. None of them had, some of them had feathers, some of them had scales, some of them had skin. Some of them looked this way, some of them looked that way, some of them had, different characteristics. Well, after it was all over, the reason the scientists did that is every one of these had gotten a set of turkey bones. They were turkey hen bones. And once they put them together, they began to develop all these far-fetched kinds of ideas of what it looked like. The picture that's on that piece of paper is what scientists have determined based upon 7 skeletal remains of what the Archaeopteryx looked like, based upon the fact of what some of the bones looked like. So now, let's look at some of this. Remember, the linkage had to do with similarity. In the middle column, it says this: the Archaeopteryx fossil, however, included specimens that had been smuggled out of China. Again, it said they were found in China. All of these were found in China. They were smuggled out and set up and proven. The problem is, when you do paleontology, you have to be very, very careful. Every step of the process is covered, and pictures are taken, and it's recorded. Years ago, I was part of a archaeological dig looking for dinosaur bones, and the instructions for day one, especially for amateurs, was to be careful, go slow. If you think you find something, don't take a pickaxe. Take a small pick and a small, like a makeup brush, and begin to chip away, looking specifically for anything that might be of interest. If you find it, stop. Don't keep digging hoping you're going to find something. Stop, because we need to bring someone in that has some expertise as we take this and uncover this out of. We were in a bank looking through the layers that were there for deposits of shells and deposits of fossils. We found some clams. We found some other things that had been fossilized at a point in time, and that's another story that we can talk about another day. But in the midst of that, here's what he says: they were smuggled out of China and thus are uncertain of how well preserved or how accurate that they are. The next paragraph says, the National Geography magazine plans to publish an article in March that says that CT scans of the fossil appeared to confirm Zhu's observations and had revealed variations and anomalies that had revealed anomalies in the reconstruction, said National Geographic spokesman. She added that more information was needed. Before I can make the claim, I'm trying to understand, are we sure that what we got is what we have? That makes sense? Are we sure that what you're presenting to me is what we actually found? Because the next line says, Zhu contends that by the way, this is the guy that found them, contends, or this is the guy that wrote this article or came up in opposition to the article. He contends that the Archaeopteryx is a combination of 2 fossils, one of the body and head of a bird-like creature and the other of the tail of a different dinosaur. He said he found another fossil in a private collection in China that contains the mirror image of the supposed tail of the Archaeopteryx. What he said is this: no, what you have is a compilation or compiling of 2 different species in order to try to get to the place that you can prove your point with what you have. So we go up to the next one. This is a completely new dinosaur. Speaking of the bones, this is a completely new dinosaur. It's nothing like the Archaeopteryx, said Zhu of China's Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleontology, whatever that word is, said in an interview. Okay? What you guys have purported to be the evidence to link in the evolutionary model, because we have to have evidence, is a complete hoax. It is not true. I love this. No one has been able to accurately compare the 2 fossils side by side. Research is still ongoing. Now, make sure you see that picture, because here's what I'm going to tell you. I take you into a 7th grade class on biology, and in the textbook is the picture of this bird, dinosaur bird. I am under the impression that what I'm being told is the truth, But look, underline that under the pic. This is a model reconstruction of an Archaeopter. Nothing more. We have no evidence to prove this, but yet it's purported to be the truth and to be a key transitional species in the process of evolution from one species, one genus to the other. Okay? We have to be careful of what we read. Now, the next page that you have is from Denver in the year 2000. A new fossil has been found that may throw a huge wrench into the current evolutionary paradigm for the origin of elephants. Okay, we're now looking at a new fossil that has been found. So, okay, sometimes the statements of evolution fly into the air, the arena of idiocracy. Stay with me. This is scientific proof, scientific evidence. The second paragraph. The fossil was discovered in a lava bed in the southern part of Congo near the small village of whatever that is. It was in a layer suggesting it originated in the Cretaceous period some 50 million years ago. The main fossil appears to be that of a trunk. Stay with me. It stays to be the imprint of a trunk, a fossil of a trunk, elephant trunk, and 50 yards away, it appears to be the imprints of feathers. So we have over here evidence of a fossilized elephant. You go 50 yards over here and you find evidence of feathers. Okay? So maybe there was a bird here and there was an elephant here. Oh, no, 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 no. This new discovery is shaking the evolutionary community. Many scientists are jumping on the flying bandwagon. Others are jumping into the sea and sticking to the aquatic hypothesis. Harvard paleontologist Stephen Gould is skeptical. I think that the elephant can't trace his great-great-ancestor to a fish. Others, Richard Dawkins, who is a world-famous atheist, co-discoverer of DNA, says this: flying elephants seem very feasible to me. I'll be honest with you, the context of that statement, and this is not a suggestion, this is a new fossil that's upsetting and being transformational in the evolutionary process that now goes back to a time when elephants had feathers. Dawkins says this: I knew we would find more transitional fossils. I can't wait to hear what the creationists have to say. Well, I know what the creationists have to say. You're an idiot. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, but that's the truth. You're an absolute fool to say what we've now discovered is that once upon a time elephants had feathers. But that, my friend, is the direction and the reliability of what we now find in paleontology. Turn the page. This next one talks about the Eocene fossil turtle. Now they've discovered in Germany, it's at the Messiel pit in Germany, one of the largest, most compact areas that's been discovered to have just a huge amount of fossils there. This originally was a coal mine, then they did some other things with it. They tried to turn it into a landfill in the 1970s, but now it's been discovered to be one of the places where there's more fossils than many other places in the world, all kinds of things. And here's what they discovered. I know you can't see that picture well, but this is a fine example of a swift-swimming turtle from the oil shale Messiel pit deposits in Darmstadt, Germany. When I see the fossil, I see it as a turtle. It looks like a turtle. It has the appearance of a turtle. It has the characteristics of a turtle. Therefore, it must be a turtle. But this 50 million year old deposits are famous for their exceptionally well preserved organisms, some of which have the remains of their last meal preserved within them. Now, there's a word there that he uses that if we're not careful, we will overlook. He does not say it's a fossil. It's not a fossil, it's a organism. Soft tissue preservation is a common event in material from the pit. Okay, so what we know is in this pit, now it's found in a quarry, buried within the framework of the rock layers that are there. And these rock layers are fine layers in which they were laid on top of each other. Again, the evolutionary model will tell you that that happened over millions and millions and millions of years, unless, as you go on down a little bit, it says, well, let me find it. See, I'm not finding what I wanted to read to you. Okay, the reason it's not there, it's in another article I didn't pull up for you. But here's a turtle, completely observable as a turtle, even with the meals preserved inside of it. They're able to tell what they ate. They're able to see all the details of those kinds of things. That no, they're not fossilized after 50 million years, but they were preserved with the details that are there. But what this tells us then is that this species is now encapsulated in this. One of the things they found is when they took it out of the areas, and many of these, when they took them out of that area in which they were encased in the shell, oh, by the way, that means this, that whatever happened to that thing, that as it was captured and encased in that shell when it was still soft, if it happened in a long process of time, the decay process of this turtle would have disintegrated it. But if it was captured quickly and encapsulated and compressed within the framework, it could have been held with the contents that are there in it. I wrote this down. The pit deposits were formed during the Eocene epoch in the Paleogene period, about 47 million. This is not in your notes. The fossils within the shell show a remarkable clarity and preservation due to the unique deposital characteristics of the lake and of the pit. The upper stratifications of the lake most certainly supported a variety of organisms, but the bottom are subject to very little disturbance by current spawning an exit environment. What they're saying is this: anytime that you have an event, erosion, whatever, the movement of that would destroy whatever's there. The hypothesis of how this was preserved is as it died, it sunk through all the upper layers to the very bottom of this reservoir, where there was a lack of oxygen, and somehow it laid on the bottom of this over the slow process of seeing the sediment build on top of it and then compress over millions and millions of years. The reality is, anything that dies that falls to the bottom of a lake, the only way it would be preserved is if there was an immediate and a large amount of material deposited on top of it all at once. What it says in that then is that this is a preserved turtle. The question, I want you to come back again and look at this. No place does it say it's a fossil. Okay, very quickly, we'll do one more. New discoveries suggest dinosaur is warm-blooded. This is from an article that was written. I want you to look at the second paragraph. The remains of a 66 million year old dinosaur suggest that the extinct creatures were warm-blooded. Here's the difficulty. Science has told us over the period of time that dinosaurs are reptiles, and all the reptiles are cold-blooded. Therefore, if now we're discovering that reptiles are warm-blooded, then that throws the whole connectivity, the whole process of evolution into a tizzy, because it was unheard of for the fact that dinosaurs could be warm-blooded. So what happened was they discovered this fossil. A modern medical x-ray of a dinosaur fossil named Willie found clear evidence that the animal had a 4-chambered heart that sent blood directly to and from the lungs and then pumped the oxygen-rich blood to the body through a single arched aorta, similar to how the human heart works. In fact, the evidence of this began to prove that this dinosaur, cold-blooded reptile, had a heart very similar to human heart, to other mammals, warm-blooded animals. And as such, the whole context of what that would look like, down about three paragraphs. The single aorta is really important, said Russell, a co-author of the study appearing Friday in the journal Science. Quote, this challenges some of the most fundamental theories about how and when dinosaurs evolved, end quote. What does that say? Well, everything that you thought you knew, now you don't know. The evidence over and over again through paleontology, as we find new evidence, has to be completely rewritten. And the truth is, when you have a creation model, you don't have to rewrite anything. None of the evidence. Were there dinosaurs in the beginning? Of course there were. Were they reptilian? Were they part of the 3 beasts that were created on day 5? The wild beast? Were they reptilian as part of the creeping things on the earth? Whatever it looks like, I don't have to be worried that somehow I'm going to discover in science something that completely makes me have to rewrite my belief as a creationist. As an evolutionist, I'm constantly being challenged by the data that's coming out that proves all of these new things. Okay? All right, this week finishes up that paleontology. Next week, we'll get on our next part. Thank you so much. See you then.